Thanks everyone who has joined. I'm going to start this session now. Okay, so thanks again for joining. Today's webinar is called Through the 2020 Looking Glass. That's because we know that we're in a pretty special year this year due to the global public health crisis that we're in and how that's changing markets, and particularly e-commerce has been affected here. Before we get into those details, I just have a couple of housekeeping notes for you to make sure that you have a good experience. First thing, you might want to close or suspend open tabs. If you're like me, you have dozens open usually. You might also want to disable sync on kind of these data consumers like Google Drive, Dropbox, and so on, so you have good bandwidth. And one last note, you can use the Q&A feature here in Zoom to ask questions. And please please feel free to do that. A quick look at the agenda. I'm going to offer you a presentation about KPI development in Europe, more or less year to date. We'll look through August. And then I'm gonna share some insights about the holiday outlook. Then I'll keep that kind of as brisk as I can and move along. Then we'll move into a panel discussion, which I think will be a really interesting thing here. And we'll introduce the panelists in a little later on. First, let me just say a few words about myself. My name is Mike, and I'm in charge of product management here at Smarter E-commerce. We work on automation solutions for Google Ads. And I've got a long background in retail experience. I've done everything in operations from like driving a forklift to purchasing, key account management, all kinds of things in between. So let's just get into it. I've compiled some information here about how benchmarks have developed specifically related to Google Shopping this year in Europe. So first, I want to show you this chart from Merkle from their digital marketing report. It's one of my favorite resources. I download it every quarter. They get my email address every time. But this is a super fascinating chart for me. You see that clicks is just massively spiking and CPC massively sinking in Q2 of this year. And actually, when you see how it flattens out the rest of the history there, it makes you wonder what they used to write about every quarter, because this is just a seismic shift. But that's US data. So what do we see here in Europe? We've been working on preparing some data sets that help understand that. And what I can tell you is that at the kind of top level in Google Shopping, it can vary per industry and geography a bit. The specifics will change, but we did see a major bubble in shopping conversions. And then there's a period that I would call kind of aftermath. So let's dig into that. In the first place, I want to show you what happened with funnel values, by which I mean the impressions, the clicks, and the conversions. We can see that I have a key date here of March 16th specified. That's when lockdown conditions started and offline stores closed in an awful lot of European countries, not all. For example, I think it was March 23rd, a week later, that the UK shut down. But this resulted in an immediate spike in conversions. And a couple weeks later, we saw impressions and clicks really ramping and peaking about a month later. So this is a really interesting time in the history of e-commerce, to be honest. And I want to look at why conversions spiked faster and why they spiked kind of more broadly than this clear peak, for example, that we saw in impressions. And then we'll also talk about what happened after that. In a nutshell, the reason that conversions peaked so much faster than impressions, it can only be one thing: it's the conversion rate. Here we saw a massive sensitivity in consumers, a big change in their behavior, where we were actually down year over year in the weeks prior to lockdown in terms of conversion rate. And then it just had this massive 18% leap in a single week. That was as soon as lockdown started, there was this intensity, this urgency to the way that people were shopping. People were highly motivated to complete transactions. The future was unclear. They wanted to stock up on things. They wanted to get things before inventory might run out, and so on. And then we see it looks pretty sharp now in this graph, but at the time it felt more gradual than that. We saw that conversion rates did deflate over the coming weeks. And I've defined the second week of May as kind of an end to this bubble, where we basically, all the air got left out of the conversions at that point. And we see that the trend there's a clear difference here in what was going on at that point. Since then, this has been challenging. Conversion rates have been pretty volatile in the aftermath, and they've been down year over year. And bearing in mind that impressions have still been up year over year, this has produced some challenges in efficiency for a lot of merchants and advertisers. And yeah, we see actually in recent weeks this little spike here, but beyond that, I can't show you because the data is not really fully attributed yet, but it looks like that was a temporary trend. So another key factor here is what happened with CPCs. We remember, if we look at the Merkle data at the start, they saw that clicks spiked and CPCs tanked. And the same thing happened here in Europe. So during that core bubble where we saw high intent and high impressions, CPCs were getting really low at that time. And there can be a lot of reasons why. I think the auction environment is very complex, and things occurred there like Amazon dropping out. This made headlines and made a big difference in a lot of people's auctions. There were competitors who were newly online. There were competitors who couldn't fulfill orders anymore and had to drop out. There were all kinds of things going on. But to me, I actually see that there was a surplus in basically impressions out there, and it resulted in basically more ad inventory than clicked ads. And I think that this is what drove down CPC. We've seen it remain pretty stable, and it's been trending upwards in recent weeks. Just want to mention that you can access all this data yourself via a data studio report that we've made for free. There's no email wall, nothing like that. You can just go, I'll share this presentation afterwards. You can just go and click that link to the smec Market Observer, and you can segment this by search or shopping. We just looked at shopping data now. You can also segment it by 10 different industries that we have available. So knowing the history of what happened this year, I think the big question is what's going to happen next. What is the Q4 going to look like for everyone? What is Black Friday weekend going to look like for everyone? It's really hard, even impossible to predict this, but we can make some kind of assumptions and some generalizations here. My thesis statement for that is that this will probably be the biggest Q4 ever in terms of raw volume, but there's also going to be some core challenges baked into that. So this is Google Trends data for Black Friday interest in Germany. Wanted to focus on Germany because it's a very large economy, and we see that the growth occurring in search and shopping is quite steep each year. And so this volume has a kind of consolidating effect on demand. I'm not a huge fan of Black Friday. I'm an American, and so I feel a little guilty now living here in Europe that we brought this to Europe because I see it as just taking a lot of demand, putting it together at a relatively low profit time of year. Often you're just seeing these insane discounting and so on that consumers come to expect. And I'm not sure it's the most positive thing, but it is what it is. And one thing to bear in mind about this data is that it's indexed. And so the volume here between shopping and search is quite different. But Google doesn't share the actual volume. They just share these index scores. But we can see though that Black Friday on shopping is growing even faster than it is within the search properties, within their overall web search property. Now, I anticipate that the peak, because this is showing actually the month of November as a whole in this data, and we're going to drill down into how does the interest look within the month and how does interest look on the day of. But one thing that I anticipate is that we'll see this while the overall volume is going to grow, it's going to be less spiky and start to get a little more broad. And some possible contributing factors here could be all these newly online shoppers who maybe haven't been trained, so to say. They might have had less exposure to Black Friday in the past, and they might have less predictable shopping behaviors. I think also that merchants are in a real challenging spot regarding Black Friday, because it's not going to be likely that they'll be allowed to cram people into their stores for an offline experience. So this will be challenging as well. Also, Black Friday is very stressful to supply chains, and that'll be as much of an issue as ever when we see the volume will be stretching what the postal services are able to fulfill. Also, this was a question mark when I originally presented this slide earlier in the month, but it's not a question mark anymore. Prime Day has been announced for, if I'm not mistaken, October 13th and 14th, a 2-day event. And that's just 6 weeks out from Black Friday, and there will be implications on that. Maybe we can discuss it more during the panel. Just for comparison, I want to show you, since Germany is not all of Europe, I decided to take one of the other large economies here and see how it looks there. And the UK, perhaps because of their cultural connection to the US, they adopted Black Friday much earlier than in Germany. And they also, it was really 2014 was a pretty transformative year for Black Friday and for e-commerce in the UK. But we still see that it's growing every year, and it's not quite as steep because the market is already more saturated in terms of Black Friday. So it's harder to move those large numbers upward. Regarding what's happening to Black Friday, kind of zooming into the whole month leading up to it. This is again Google Trends data, and what I've done is taken the monthly, or rather the 30 days leading up to Black Friday, since the data is always variable, for 2017, 18, and 19, and mapped those together. And it's pretty interesting because we can see that in 2017, there was some kind of interest in the days leading up to it, and then there was a super sharp spike. In 2018, the interest in the weeks and the days before, rather, was higher. People were starting to research the Black Friday deals in advance. They were effectively, I would say, getting a bit trained by the marketing materials out there, and having some different expectations and adopting some different behaviors. And this is the most clear in 2019, where we can see that the volume is notably higher in the days leading up. And actually a week out, there was a big spike where people are really looking to see if deals are being announced, if deals are already available. And that's a pretty interesting trend. This is again for Germany. Now, bear in mind, each of these years, again, since it's indexed data, we can't see that the volume is rising overall, but that's visible in this chart here. We can see the volume rises. Drilling it down to the daily level, what's occurring, or rather the hourly level, what's occurring on the day of Black Friday. I know that Black Friday is not all of the holiday season, but it's still a super fascinating phenomenon to study. And in a couple more slides, I'll also show you the significance of it in Google Ads. But this is what the day of looks like, and it's pretty interesting. What we can see, I've just color-coded clicks and CPC, since these are the unit that you pay for and the unit price. I've coded those red, and then I've coded the conversions and the conversion rate green. And you can see that conversions and clicks, they are pretty steady throughout the day. They both experience a moderate peak in the evening hours. I mean, as a dad, my theory is that this is because the kids are finally to bed. Also, Black Friday, while it's often a day off in the US, this is not usually the case in Europe. And there's probably a little more time for people to go ahead and complete carts that they might have been building all day, or finally have a chance to look at the deals. CPC, interestingly, peaks before that in the mid-morning. And what I also think is worth mentioning is that conversion rate is peaking even before that. So there's actually a pretty high intent here in the early morning, and I see a little window of opportunity there where the intent is high, the CPC hasn't peaked yet. I also see a window of opportunity here where volume is high and CPC has cooled off a bit. Those would be typically core times where you want to make sure that you've got budget available, especially at the end of the day. It's really important that your budget is lasting through the whole day. Now, what's going to happen in 2020? No one can know this, but here's just a little sketch, and I'll explain in some more detail in the next couple slides. But I think that there's definitely going to be more volume, which is this golden line here for 2020. And I also think that it's going to be a little broader, not such a narrow peak, and it might end sooner. And we can talk about the reasons why now and during the panel as well. But there'll be challenges. I mean, this is great, this volume that it's there, but there'll be challenges there. And I think that challenge is going to come down to how do the conversion rates look. So first, before we get into a little more detail there, let's talk about how 2019 looked. I've highlighted 2 points here. This is index data for Google Shopping in Europe, and we can see that and this is based on our data. It's a similar data set to like the Market Observer. We can see that interestingly, conversion rate dips as the impression volume is starting to grow. I don't think it's any mystery. I guess that this volume is a lot of research entailed in that. People are waiting to see the deals. They're getting ideas. Okay, I know I want to buy my daughter a laptop, but which laptop, and so on. And the conversion rate is dipping a little bit during that time. Then as we get a little closer to the holiday, we start to see that intent improve and the impressions keep ramping. And so this is a really positive time where your conversion volume should be ramping and you should start to see some good efficiency. Then we enter kind of this core period here for 3-4 weeks. In this case, I've highlighted 3 weeks. Where Black Friday is the event that just all that latent demand, there's all this researching that's been occurring, and that just kind of cracks open in that weekend. And that's partly due to the sales that are available. It's partly due to the time pressures as the holidays get closer. But that's really a classic peak right there. And then it falls off pretty quickly partway through December as people are really focusing on making sure that they've got their orders in time. It's getting too late. But there is kind of a second peak in conversion rate there where it's their last chance to get things on time. Now, how might that look in 2020? This is, again, just kind of a scribble, but I think the most important thing that we need to talk about is that the starting point is really different, because we know that impressions are up right now and conversion rate is down. And if it follows a similar pattern to last year, the impressions are going to continue ramping, and we'll see that the conversion rate dips. And there's going to be a huge volume out there with kind of challenging conversion rates. Then it's sort of anyone's guess how the intent will manifest itself. I've overlaid these charts on top of each other here, but I guess that we might see this conversion rate falling off a bit earlier compared to 2019 because of supply chain issues and topics like that. Because of the overall trend that we saw that people are starting their holiday shopping a bit earlier and researching earlier and so on. I think we're just going to have a little bit of a gap here between conversion rate and volume, that it'll be really important to be targeted and to find ways to be effective and efficient. And because it's not just about the volume, it's about making sure that that volume works for you and is profitable. And Black Friday always challenges that, for the holidays in general. So I'll just wrap up with a few words before we open it up to the panel. Some implications for retailers, brands, and I know there's agencies in this session too. Right now, time-based comparisons are risky at best. I just made some earlier, but you have to be really careful when comparing to last year, when comparing month over month, week over week, because this was really a seismic shift in what happened in Google Shopping, in text ads as well. We basically are going to be in a tricky period for at least the next year, where then we'll be comparing, next spring we'll be comparing stuff to lockdown. And just like during lockdown, we were comparing to the year before, and Black Friday is going to be different, not just this year, but next year too. And we're going to be really hard pressed to make good comparisons. And what's important is to just, be flexible, look at things with a critical eye, and be kind of innovative in how you're measuring. As I said, Q4 should bring massive volume, but I expect that there's going to be real targeting challenges due to the widening gap in the end between impression volume, overall volume versus intent. It's kind of like panning for gold. And this slide I adapted from a presentation at SMX, where I also went into a whole next section about Google's product strategy. But it's worth mentioning here too. Google will present revenue opportunities to you that will test your independence. I'm referring here to some of their bidding solutions and some of the options that they have out there, which can be effective, but with certain downsides as well. And maybe we can discuss that in the panel too. But I don't want to take any more of your time, and I want to get into the panel now. So I'll just quickly introduce our panelists. We have Irene joining us from our customer success management. So Irene is a specialist in Google Shopping, and she's been managing at times, I don't know what the current number is, but like 3.5 million euros in monthly budget. She's working on a lot of accounts, a focus on the UK, and really interesting insights out of Irene always. Christian is, I might call him CJ sometimes. That's a nickname for Christian, but he's also in customer success management. He, again, works with Google Shopping, and he's in the UK and also the Nordics. He's kind of our resident Viking, so we'll look for some of that Viking energy from him in the panel. And last, Stefan, he's an account strategist. He's more involved in the text ad side of Google Ads, and he's also taken an interest in recent years into more upper funnel topics. He's really into programmatic, and he has a lot to contribute in terms of those topics too. So without any further ado, I'm going to switch to the panel now. Okay, we got CJ, Stefan, Irene, thanks guys. So let's get into it. I've got some questions that I've prepared, but I also want to mention to everyone out there that you can please also submit questions. We'd be really excited to know what's on your mind, what you'd like to hear about, and you can kind of, in that way, participate in the panel too. Irene, I'm just noticing that, and Stefan, it looks like you guys are muted, just that you're aware. Question, I'll start with you, Irene. What are you hearing from the market so far? What are people's hopes and worries for the season ahead? Are they more excited, nervous? What are you hearing right now?
Well, hearing from the market, I would say everyone is super excited, super pumped about what's happening in Q4, because naturally Q4 is like their holiday season. We have events like Black Friday, Singles Days coming to Europe. And of course, Christmas is a major shopping event. But on the other hand, I also hear lots of being nervous and uncertainty, because on the one hand, retailers want to make lots of sales, want to ship a lot of packages, and on the other hand, they also want to protect their staff. So I would say it's a bit mixed signals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing the same thing from my side, especially the ones that are directly competing with Amazon or some of the bigger competitors. They're really nervous about what their actions might be. They have been a little untraditional this year in how they have been acting. So they definitely showed that they have the will to change their bidding on a short-term notice. So also depending on your market position, I hear different things out there. Some are confident, some are more nervous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Stefan, is there anything you want to add?
No, it's just what I heard is more about excitement. They are all excited. They are super pumped. As Irene said, there are challenges, of course. They don't know what to expect. They don't know about the volume. It's going to be a challenge for logistics and all those stuff. But the majority is definitely excited about it. And if the backbone is set up correctly, Q4 can be huge. And most of our customers are really excited about it. And I think, whatever they expect, I think it will happen at the end of the day, because Q4 is going to be massive. And if they overcome the challenges, I think it's going to be a year that they won't forget about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think the volume that we'll see is going to be unprecedented. And at the end of the day, the conversion volume that we'll see is going to be unprecedented as well. Once we get through these challenges and the stress of the day of and stuff like that, I think we'll be pretty happy about the volume that actually occurred in the end. Irene, let me ask you another question. How do you think that consumer behavior might be different this year? I remember we were talking the other day, you've been looking at some reports from McKinsey, and I'm sure you've had your own observations too. What do you think we might see?
Yeah, I think we all listening to this webinar are in the lucky position that we have a job, that we are still able to work, that our companies are still alive, so to say. But we must not forget that we are still in the middle of a health crisis, and it's also an economic crisis. So many people lost their jobs. So I would assume that now for the coming season, consumers will be more price sensitive, especially when it comes to key holiday events and the shopping events. Then I would also say that the research phase might start earlier. So just they are able to compare prices and just see where to get the best out of the littlest money.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, volume will go up because all those offline shops will most likely shop online, because UK is close to another lockdown. I don't know, Germany, Austria, maybe the same in the future. And as soon as all those offline shoppers start to buy online, volume will go up. And it's a natural thing that this will happen in Q4. And the other thing is, as Mike mentioned before, Christmas, this late Christmas shoppers, they will disappear because no one will buy on the 20th of December. So I guess Christmas present shopping will start earlier as well. And therefore, I guess Q4 and especially Black Friday until early December will be bigger than it was before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also think people already experienced a delay in their packages arriving when Corona first hit. So people are more used to that.
Yeah,
this might drag out. So maybe we will see really that they will be a lot earlier this year, and maybe focusing more about the time where they also save some money and are sure that the packages will arrive in time.
Yeah, I think once bitten, twice shy. If you had these experience with delayed shipments before, you won't forget that right away. And Irene, to your point about the economic challenges here, I think that this is also going to depend what happens with the virus case numbers, how this is evolving, what kind of regulatory actions get taken, and so on. So it's definitely a wild card, but I also I think that considering the scale of this crisis, the economies, especially here in Europe, they're mostly staying pretty strong. I'm pretty happy about that, and within e-commerce, we're in a kind of a lucky position there. too, compared to other sectors like travel and so on. Question for you, Stefan. What should merchants be doing now to get ready? And I don't just mean operatively, but what do you think of strategically, Stefan, when you think of the holiday season ahead?
Yeah, there are many things to really think about. I mean, first of all, it's about customer experience. And second of all, it's about when do you start preparing for Black Friday and the season before. Mike, you mentioned there will be peaks before, and I'm sure about that as well. Mm-hmm. So we need to make sure that all is set up correctly. And it's not about only that the logistics and everything is set up and the stocks are full and all of those things. It's more about what do you do on the website? What do you do with the data coming in and how to reactivate all those people that bought on Black Friday? So one thing that you might think of is maybe positioning a header banner on your homepage, just announcing that there will be a huge offer coming up. And all those people coming to your website up front, because volume will be high throughout the whole November. So a lot of people will click on this banner. And what you could do is like announcing there will be an offer. Everyone who clicks on this banner will be put into a remarketing list, maybe with a landing page for email registration so that you just gather emails as well. And on or shortly before Black Friday, you reactivate them again with maybe some upper funnel measures, some banners, some videos, of course, email marketing, and just make sure you get the most out of this data. On the other hand, for the website itself, consider creating a guest checkout. On Black Friday and the week before and Cyber Monday as well, everything needs to be really fast. Make it as easy as possible for people to check out. Of course, you will not get all the data. You will get most of the data, of course, but you get email data. And email data is key. As soon as you have the guest checkout, you will gather data faster and easier because more people will most likely buy. They don't have to sign up for an account or anything. They will buy. And this data is key for the next year because all the data you gather, and you will gather a lot of new customers' data, can be used throughout the whole year, can be used throughout December, January, and not only with the emails, but also with the website. So make sure the tag management is in place. Make sure you set up audience lists, remarketing lists based on what happens on Black Friday. Because of course, there will be a lot of returning visitors, no doubt about that, but there will be a lot of new customers and you will profit from it when you make sure that you really collect all this data on Black Friday. Volume is here, just make sure you gather the data and use it. So that's more of a usability strategic advice of what to do with the data. But of course, on the other hand, as mentioned before, make sure you are able to handle all this, what's going to happen. Make sure you can fulfill the orders and make sure you will deliver in time. Because if you're unable to fulfill the orders, you will get a whole lot of negative comments on the web, and that will never be good for you. So make sure you're prepared for it. Mm-hmm. That's key.
Yeah, definitely. And that comes to keeping your feed up to date and dynamically in these high volume periods too.
Mike, let me just maybe answer these two questions in there because they're pretty much the same. For the second one, if we should order the same amount of products like you did last year, depends on the vertical, of course. But from a natural standpoint, I would say yes, because I guess even Black Friday will be bigger than last year, but the season before Black Friday, the weeks before Black Friday will be even bigger than last year. So make sure your stock levels are full. The capacity is there. Most likely it will be better than last year. No one can really predict it, but that's what the market shows because even sales are up in September and I saw a really good start, or late September, early October will be huge as well. So I expect Black Friday to be even bigger and the weeks before. So make sure stock level is there. And for the budgeting, and that's what two people just asked, if we have an advice for budgeting, and that's the most tricky one because I cannot say just, triple your daily average budget because no one knows what's really going to happen. So there's one thing that will be key, and we will discuss it later a bit, but it's key that during Black Friday, you will measure your KPIs closely throughout the day, which means don't look at Google Ads data, don't look at Facebook data, don't look at all the delayed data. Make sure you have a system in place that really more or less in real time attributes conversion and revenue, because only then you can really say if the volume that you get is worth the amount of money you spend. And volume will go up. So we cannot say, increase your budget 5 times or something. You just have to monitor it closely, and you should define a KPI. Let's say a ROAS target, and you say, whatever happens I can take it if the ROAS stays within a certain range, and then just take whatever you can get if you're within this ROAS goals. But you can, and I guess that's the hardest part, you cannot really budget for Black Friday. You just need to really calculate your margin situation, what kind of ROAS you can really take. And based on this, what you measure up front, you should budget throughout the day, and you have to monitor it closely. But it's nearly impossible to predict volume, predict budget. Mm-hmm. So just go for a KPI. And if you're confident with a ROAS of 20 and everything underneath or everything above that is fine for you, make sure you stay within this limit and take as much as you can get. Yeah. But really naming a number, like let's say it's 5 times higher than last year, that's almost impossible. But we've seen it throughout the lockdown phase. It was higher and it will be even higher during Black Friday. Yeah. But just commit yourself on KPIs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in years past, if I remember, Google is usually recommending increasing budget 30% each year. And I guess we'll see more than 30% growth this year. So I would definitely have in mind that. Irene, CJ, anything you guys want to add on the topic?
Yeah, definitely stay flexible on that day. You have to monitor it from the early mornings. Conversion rate is high in the morning hours, and what we see is when people click, they are also converting if the intent is there. So it's not like you should invest in a low ROAS in the morning and then anticipate that they will come back and convert in the evening. No, the conversion rate actually stays quite stable throughout the day, where there is a slight increase in the morning. It feels like people are aware that the companies might get out of stock, so they are like faster on pulling the trigger and just do the purchase right there. So don't try to, if you see you have way too much cost and your ROAS is down, yet take action then. But if you see that, okay, I'm actually hitting my ROAS right now, also be willing to put in more spend throughout the day. Yeah. So really flexibility and having direct live access to your data is key here. It's too late to make really big changes on the day, but so you have to kind of what I try to advise my clients, think of like the worst case scenario. What is the worst that could happen for you? Is that a huge overspend? Is that you are getting out of stock and keep getting orders on items that you do not have anymore, or generating a lot of traffic to items that are out of stock? And then try to focus on not getting in those pitfalls. Yeah. Make your strategies based on that, and then really monitor throughout the day. It's going to be massive this year. It will be different than any of all the years. We can anticipate that. So yeah, that's my advice.
And one more thing to add, and it depends on vertical, but try to avoid spending money on products that won't sell. For example, if you're in the clothing industry and you just have like XX large products available, make sure you put them out of the shopping feed or something, because based on the 80-20 rule, they will drive a lot of volume, a lot of cost. But as I said, based on 80-20 rule, most people have medium or large. XX large is pretty, rare, let's say. But if you're in the shopping auction and you're shown with your product, people will click no matter what size they have. So make sure that you apply specific rules to maybe even exclude products from your Google Shopping feed to just avoid spending too much on products that won't sell.
One note on that, Stefan, there's some breaking news today regarding these free shopping tab clicks through the Surfaces program, and that'll be rolling out here in Europe in mid-October. And what I would mention is, you can, rather than excluding them from your feed totally, you might want to change where they're targeted to, and you can still keep those products targeted at the shopping tab, because then you can benefit from those free clicks, and there's no reason why not to. You want to activate as many products as you can within the shopping tab, and that can be done via the feed too. And CJ, I just want to mention, I like this comment about asking about the worst case, understanding what that might be. I think it's really important when you're defining a strategy, not just to focus on what you want to happen, but also what are your non-goals, and then you have a clear sense of boundaries. And a good basis for making decisions. Let's see. I want to run through some more questions here. We still have a little bit of time. Actually, CJ, Irene, is there anything that either of you want to add about what merchants should be doing now at a strategic level? Otherwise,
yeah, I mean, in order to be successful on the key sales date, I think it's always a good idea to start with the basics. Make sure your data feed is ready. Make sure your items are in stock. Make sure, or even take some money and get some nice pictures for your top sellers. Make some customized titles so you just stand out whenever a shopping query happens, and then that you are the one triggering the attention of the user.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It just jumped to my mind now. There's kind of, I would say, a low adopted feed attribute too, which is to have these multiple images. And now they're sometimes displaying a kind of a carousel effect where when someone hovers their cursor over, or their mouse over one of these PLA units, that it will actually cycle through those images. And these are little things that you can do maybe to stand out and improve your click-through rate and improve the way you appear. Irene, if I'm not mistaken, you're also a big fan of showcase shopping ads. Anything that you want to add about that?
Of course, yeah. A big fan, yeah, because unfortunately they are not available in Austria, because otherwise as a shopper, I would always click on them, because showcase shopping ads, they usually appear whenever someone is searching for generic traffic and on mobile. And I would say most of the traffic that is coming is from mobile and also super generic. And they offer a broader range of pictures. So you get a nice picture, and if you click on it, then you get into a category landing page and not only on a single product landing page. So it's really cool for browsing and just, yeah, some upper funnel when you don't know yet what you actually want to buy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we are
a perfect format for those research weeks and days leading up to the holidays.
Yeah, and just what we've seen with customers, we've seen some customers with better ROAS on Showcase compared to standard shopping. Mm-hmm. So don't be afraid to set it up. They are a format that gets a boost in volume. Like 1.5 years ago, Showcase ads, when they started, like really low volume, but they go up and up. And ROAS is sometimes better than standard shopping. So for Black Friday season, make sure you think about setting up Showcase ads for your top brands, top categories, something like this. It doesn't have to be a lot. Like if you have like 5 brands, Adidas, Nike, and so on, create one Showcase ads for Nike, one for Adidas, one for, I don't know, your top 3 categories, and make sure you're live with them, because you will capture all this generic traffic that converts well during Black Friday as well. And I've seen super cool results with Showcase ads. So don't be afraid of it.
Yeah,
and sorry, Mike, if I would like to add something on that. You can even create Showcase ads on CSS, and then you again have the auction advantage that you have with your normal shopping campaigns, and that always pays off in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. I think the CSS campaigns are really interesting in comparison, or in combination with the standard Google campaigns. CJ, let me ask you, what are you expecting from Amazon? And yeah, if they're coming back, what would you do about it?
Yeah, so we know that already now eBay is starting to do some sales, and they're not afraid of pumping up their impression shares. They're pumping the CPCs up, and that's just some early signals of what the bigger ones are going to be doing. So from my perspective, one of the most important things to do, like right now, is to start to differentiate yourself in the bidding. Make sure that you are participating in auctions where the overlap rate with those big giants are not too big. That's where you have the lowest risk of them starting to press the bids up during the high sales day. One way to do this is also to implement some kind of a query split where you really go in and bid higher and more differentiated on product specific data. eBay, Amazon, the big ones, they tend to bid mainly on generic data, and that's just a battle that you're going to lose. So if you want to do something good for yourself, really get on the query sculpting wave and start gathering data there. I have clients where we see that on generic data, we are somewhere in between all of their main competitors, but we have set up a query sculpting setup where like we have then 70% of the impression share, and the focus is going more and more into these search terms. And we can also see that the revenue part is also growing on the product specific data. So really, from my perspective, a big focus on being specific in how you are handling your traffic is the most important thing, especially for Black Friday, where we know Amazon, eBay is going to push hard on generic traffic.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's no doubt they will be in the shopping auction. They will definitely be there. And based on recent studies, I think 60% of people in at least Germany and Austria start their product search on Amazon, which means they're a huge competitor for you. So if you have special offers, make sure you even move to the upper funnel. Make sure you have some banners, some YouTube videos, some maybe even audio ads live on Spotify or something, that you tell the people you have something going on, that they come directly to your page. Because in Google Shopping, they will be present and you will be in competition with them. So make sure you tell them about your offers upfront with another channel. Maybe, as I said, some banners, some videos, whatever, but make sure they consider your shop when it's the time to do so. So it's not only about Google Shopping on the day, not only about having Google Search Live. Consider upper funnel and don't really look at conversions in the first place. It's about that people really consider your shop when Black Friday is here. Of course, it's a bit investment in the future, let's say, but it's important. It's key to really succeed against those big fish.
Yeah, I think there's so much noise in the core holiday weeks that if you make that investment in your branding beforehand, you won't regret that, because that's going to help you. And you know how viable these performance channels like shopping or search are for kind of inverse funnel. Like if you try to introduce people to your brand through shopping, yes, you can do that, absolutely. But you should also be taking these upper funnel advantage of these upper funnel opportunities too. I had a question. Oh yeah, I mean, CJ, what you were describing there about being targeted against Amazon, I definitely agree. It seems to me like they have this really kind of brute force strategy. I'll notice, for example, that in a B2B vertical, on the weekends, most people are bidding down, and you see then that eBay, Amazon, that their impression share will spike on weekends or after hours, after business hours. It seems like they don't even care too much about their bids at that kind of level. They're just bidding super high, super aggressive, and kind of throwing money at the wall and see what sticks. So I think when you face a giant like that, then it's a really good advice to take a more targeted approach.
Yeah. Mike, there was another question about Amazon. If we would recommend to start selling on Amazon before Black Friday. And that's a tricky question, because first of all, it's about the products you sell. And then you need to think of the commission fees. As everyone knows, commission fees are pretty high on Amazon, depending on the vertical you're in. But I would say it's risky to start selling on Amazon like a week before Black Friday, because you don't have any proof. You don't know if it's going to work for your business. You don't know if it's going to work for your products. And it's a risky approach to do so. If you consider selling on Amazon, I would even start right now before Prime Day, gather some first insights and see how it scales, and see if you can live with the commission fee that Amazon's going to charge you anyways. And if you see it works and it scales, stay live during Prime Day, stay live during Black Friday. But without any prior experience of it, I wouldn't go live like a couple of days before Black Friday, because that's a risky approach.
Yeah. Totally, Stefan. I think just to generalize that advice a bit too, if you're thinking of a big strategic change right now or testing something, you really want to do that stuff now. You don't want to be taking those risks or placing big bets too close to the holiday. You know, if you want to improve your attribution modeling or something like this, if you want to be doing some really intensive feed work, I'd recommend doing that stuff as soon as possible.
Yeah.
It's for sure not too early. All right, guys, we still have some minutes left. So I guess another question I have is, we talked about this high volume topic, but maybe some of it's lower intent. What can we do to mitigate that specifically? How can we try to make our campaigns more performant if we assume that there'll be higher volume, but that there'll be noise in there, there'll be lower intent, or a lot of so to say spammy traffic in there? What kind of strategies can you put in place?
Yeah, so for me, that kind of goes back to the query sculpting again, really being able to bid higher where the intent is also there, where they're way further in the buying process. If you tend to bid on generic traffic, I expect to see a lot of volume from people just browsing around. Either they are just looking for something to buy because they know there's going to be stuff on sale, but the ones that are so far that they actually have like a model number, or they know exactly they look for this size in the shoe or whatever. This is just traffic where the conversion rate is not going to be diving just because there is more people looking. There will still be, the demand is still there, and I expect the conversion rate to stay stable on the product specific searches.
Okay, so you would try to dial in on those queries and take a more defensive strategy on these generic queries.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier with really analyzing the traffic on Black Friday itself. And I would be analyzing the traffic going to the different query levels. So if you have like a generic campaign, I would see, okay, how is the spend versus revenue there, and look at the same thing and then treat them differently. So regarding how much spend do I accept that day, it can be completely different based on the campaign type.
And this what CJ is describing, by the way, is possible through a combination of negative keyword lists and campaign priority, that you can kind of funnel traffic around. This is an approach developed by Martin Rüttgeding some years ago, and it still works today. But let me ask you a question, and CJ. So you say that the demand's still going to be there on this product traffic. You want to avoid the generic stuff. What do you think about kind of in the middle there, the mid-funnel stuff, or brand traffic? You know, is brand significant enough as an intent signal, the inclusion of a brand in a search term?
So what I see is often the brand doesn't have enough in itself. If you're looking for a Nike shoe, it's still kind of generic. And also when I look at Amazon and some of the other ones, they are also bidding on those terms. Yeah. So what I would recommend is really look into how are your catalog different from anyone else's? What kind of information can you give in there that kind of indicates the intent of your users? It can be a combination. You say, okay.
Sorry, CJ, breaking up a little bit, at least from my side. I think, okay, my internet is not stable.
Mine just got back again.
Yeah, mine as well.
Okay.
But I just wanted to add something what Christian said, because Irene mentioned before that price will be key, and people are searching for low prices as well. So maybe even think of a dynamic pricing strategy. I know it has big implications if you do something like dynamic pricing, but especially during Black Friday, I guess players like Amazon will change prices throughout the day a couple of times, and sometimes they will be cheaper than you, sometimes they will be more expensive. Try to find out those times where you can be cheaper and still keep your margin levels. So maybe think of a dynamic pricing strategy, scrape the prices of your competitors, and make sure you adjust the prices as well, as you see fit. I mean, of course, you shouldn't reduce prices that your margins getting a bit negative, but still, if there's room, try to outbid Amazon, try to outbid eBay. Make sure you get the most out of it, and price will be a key success factor.
Maybe you could handle this with custom labels too, like having price attractivity as a custom label, margin as another label. You could create an index out of these two things if you have this kind of data available. Yeah, that's really great advice. We're coming into the final minutes here, so I want to ask a question from all the panelists here. First, where should we start? No, one on a high note. So first I'll ask, what's like the top mistake, or what's a top mistake that you would aim to avoid? Something that you've seen in the past. Irene, do you want to start us there?
I have actually not funny story to tell, but I remember 2 years ago on Black Friday, 3 p.m. afternoon, a customer was calling me, hey, I was just able to fix my data feed, and I just added a custom label with all the products on sale. Can you please help me to set up the strategy? And I was like, yes, sure, I'll help you, but it's already 3 p.m. So 15 hours of Black Friday are already over, and we just have the last 9 hours. So I would say prepare at least for 1 day in advance which products you would like to advertise, and the according bidding strategies for those products.
Yeah, you could file that under better late than never, I guess, but better sooner. Okay, cool. So making sure you're prepared in time. CJ, what's a mistake that you've seen that you would avoid?
Yeah, not being prepared to switch off bidding for items that are going out of stock, generating a lot of orders before your system is flagging it as out of stock, or that you are just generating a lot of traffic on items. So if you have really good sales that day, make sure you both have enough stock, but also the ability to stop the bidding on it in case that you run out of stock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good advice, because what makes Black Friday so beautiful are the conversion rates. And then if you're tanking the conversion rate by sending people to a landing page like that, and driving costs there, that's painful. Stefan, something you want to add? Mistake you've seen in the past?
Yeah, it's not really a mistake. It's an advice and a mistake, and it's pretty much the same as the other said. It's about preparation, but of course, prepare for your channels, prepare for shopping, as CJ said, like Irene said, but prepare everything up front. Make sure you are ready for it, and make sure you're able to ship. Make sure you track all the data. Make sure you have some real-time tracking in place. Just make sure that there's no surprise during that day, and that's key. And if you don't do that, that's probably the biggest mistake you could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of hope for the best, prepare for the worst, this kind of thing. It's like just getting in that prep work, that's key. Thanks for those tips, guys. And then why don't we wrap it up? What's the top action that merchants should take to get ready, besides preparing now? I mean, in that prep work, what do you guys recommend? Irene?
Maybe it's not only about focusing on that one Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but actually starting sales more in advance. Maybe start on Monday, or even start some weeks in advance, some weekends in advance. On the one hand, to be ready in case of a second lockdown, in case of some health implications on your warehouse, but on the other hand, also to distribute the sales to a larger time range.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I mean, if we look at to the US with Amazon, I guess they'll bridge the gap between Amazon Prime Day and Black Friday with sales. And Walmart, for example, huge player, and they're kind of killing Black Friday in a way. They won't be really participating, and they'll instead be driving sales in the weeks and days before. So yeah, I think it's good advice to try to get started sooner. And CJ, what's a top action that you would recommend?
Make sure that you're flexible on the day. You have to be able to make really fast decisions, track performance, and make decisions during the day. It's going to be something completely else. So it's impossible to prepare for everything. So at least be flexible and able to make actions on the day itself.
Mm-hmm. So also maybe pour extra tall cup of coffee, something like that. I'll get with you through there. Yeah. I think that's exactly right. You got to be able to adapt, because we can't prepare for everything, and this is going to be unpredictable what's going to happen. Stefan, I give you then the final word. What's the top action that you would recommend?
Do not only focus on Black Friday. Make sure you ship some great offers before that. As Mike said, there will be peaks up front. Make sure you're there with products, with offers. Make sure you take whatever you can get, and think outside of the box. Not only Google Shopping, not only maybe Facebook ads. Do some upper funnel stuff. Although it's not directly converting, it will influence what you get after Black Friday. So make sure you think outside the box and don't focus on Black Friday only.
Great. Thank you guys for all that information, those great tips. It was really cool talking with you on this topic. One thing that I want to mention quickly is that all three of these panelists will have some special slots available next week. I think they each have time booked for like two slots, and they can give you advice. So that's 6 slots that are available. There's going to be email going out after this webinar where you can sign up, and it's basically first come, first serve. You can book a session, a one-on-one with these guys to talk about your holiday season that's ahead of you. And yeah, on that note, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I hope that this information was helpful, and we're wishing you a really successful holiday season. There's going to be some challenges, but at the end of the day, I think it's really important to strike an optimistic note here. The volumes are just going to be huge, and this will be something that none of us have ever seen before, and it's going to be a really exciting time. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.